People reveal their truth the moment they believe you have nothing. And that night, Veronica revealed everything. Dessert arrived, tiny plates with tiny portions, decorated like they were made for people who measure worth in money, not taste. Veronica ordered the most expensive one on the menu. $30, she said proudly, and worth every cent. Only the best places serve edible gold. I ate quietly. Mine was the cheapest dessert available. But silence has a way of unsettling people who need attention to survive. So she kept talking. About wine. About vineyards. About her refined palate. About how people without experience couldn't possibly understand quality. Finally, she turned to me and asked, "Era, do you have any hobbies?" I smiled softly. I watch TV. Cook. Walk in the park. Simple things. She exchanged a look with her husband again, this one full of judgment wrapped in pity. How lovely, she said. Simple lives can have charm, even if one never gets the chance to grow. Then she placed her fork down, folded her hands, and said, "I think it's time we talk about something important. As a family." Marcus stiffened. Simone stared at her plate. Veronica softened her voice like she was about to deliver a blessing. "Marcus is our son-in-law, and we love him very much. We want the best for him and for Simone. And stability is important." I knew exactly where this was going. She continued, "At your age, living alone with a limited income, it must be difficult. And Marcus, being the good son he is, feels responsible for you. But we don't want that responsibility to affect their marriage." There it was. The insult disguised as concern. Then came the offer, sweet, poisonous, rehearsed. "We were thinking, we could help you financially. Give you a small monthly allowance. $500, maybe $700. Just so you can live comfortably and stop relying on Marcus." I stared at her, not blinking, not reacting. She mistook my silence for gratitude. And in return, she added, "We'd appreciate it if you gave Marcus and Simone their space. Not visit too often. Not call too much. Not interfere." My son inhaled sharply. Simone froze. They wanted to buy me off. Pay me to disappear from my son's life. All for $700. I wiped my mouth calmly, placed the napkin down, and looked Veronica directly in the eyes for the first time that night. "That's an interesting offer," I said softly. Her smile grew, she thought she had one. So I asked, "How much did you contribute to their house down payment?" $40,000, she said proudly. "And the honeymoon?" $15,000. I nodded slowly. "So, you've invested around $55,000 into their lives." Veronica smiled wide, satisfied with her own generosity. And that's when I leaned forward and said, "When you spend that much, do you expect obedience in return? Or respect?" Her smile shattered. Franklin's jaw tightened. Simone's eyes lifted in shock. Marcus quietly gripped his hands beneath the table. I continued, my voice still calm, "You talk about sacrifice. You talk about generosity. But all night, every word you've spoken has been about control. About what you paid. About what you own. About what you expect." Veronica opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I held her gaze and whispered, "You didn't offer me help tonight. You tried to buy my absence." The entire table fell silent. But inside, something had finally awakened. They had no idea who they were dealing with. But they were about to find out. I walked into that restaurant looking like a woman life had broken, but the truth was, I was only there to see who would break themselves. The moment I stepped through the door, the warm lights and polished silver couldn't hide the cold faces waiting for me. Marcus saw me first. His eyes widened, surprised, embarrassed, unsure if he should hug me or hide me. Simone greeted me with a kiss so light it barely touched my skin. But her parents, they looked at me the way people look at something they didn't order, unwanted, unexpected. Veronica sat straight, wrapped in jewels that sparkled louder than her smile. Franklin wore a suit that probably cost more than everything I had on. Their eyes scanned me slowly, my wrinkled dress, my old shoes, my faded tote bag. They didn't say a word, but their silence said everything. I took the seat they left at the far end of the table, almost as if I weren't part of the family at all. No one pulled out my chair. No one asked if I was comfortable. The waiter handed me a heavy menu written in French. I opened it and pretended not to understand a single word. Veronica watched me with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Do you need help?" she asked sweetly. I nodded gently. "Yes. I don't know these words." She sighed dramatically and told the waiter, something simple for her. "Nothing too expensive." Her voice cut like a blade. Franklin nodded as if approving a charity donation. Marcus looked away. Simone pretended to fix her napkin. No one defended me. Then Veronica began her performance, talking about their trip, the $1,000 hotel, the luxury car, the designer stores. She made sure every word reached me. She wanted me to feel small. She wanted me to know my place. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I just nodded and said softly, "How nice." But she wasn't done. People like her never are. She leaned in and said, "And you, what exactly do you do?" I lowered my eyes and replied, "I work in an office. Paperwork. Simple things." She exchanged a look with her husband, a look filled with pity and superiority. "That's good," she said. "All jobs are dignified, even the simple ones." Then came the real attack, hidden under polite words. "It must be hard living alone at your age. Does your salary even cover everything? No wonder Marcus worries about you." Every sentence was dipped in poison. But I smiled quietly and said, "I manage." She continued, bragging about Simone's education, her languages, her travels, their properties, how much they spent on the wedding, on the house, on the honeymoon. And finally she asked the question she had been waiting for. "And you, were you able to help Marcus with anything when he got married?" I answered calmly, "I gave what I could. A small gift." Her smile sharpened. "How sweet. Every little bit helps." In that moment, I felt something inside me grow still, powerful. I wasn't hurt. The silence that followed was heavy, a silence that cracked something inside each of them. Marcus's fork slipped from his hand. Simone gasped softly. Franklin frowned, unable to hide disbelief. And Veronica froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I continued, "For almost 20 years, I have earned that amount. I oversee operations across 5 countries. Manage budgets bigger than your combined net worth. Sign contracts you couldn't read without a lawyer." Veronica swallowed hard. Her confidence evaporated. Marcus whispered, "Mom, why didn't you ever tell me?" I looked at him with a soft smile. "Because I didn't want you to grow up thinking money made you important. I wanted you to grow with values, not numbers." Then Simone asked quietly, "Then, why do you live so simply? Why dress like this? Why the old apartment? Why hide all of this?" I smiled gently. "Because true wealth doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. Real strength is quiet." I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. "And do you know why I came here tonight dressed like this? Why I pretended to be poor?" Veronica couldn't look away. She was trapped in the honesty she never expected. "I did it, to see how you would treat me if you believed I had nothing." Her face flushed with shame, rage, confusion. "And Veronica," I whispered, "you showed me exactly who you are." She tried to speak, but no words came out. I closed my eyes for a moment and breathed out slowly. "I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I am simply disappointed." Their entire world shifted in that moment. And for the first time since dinner began, they finally understood they weren't sitting with a poor woman. They were sitting with a storm. I wasn't angry. I wasn't threatened. I was simply done pretending to be small. Veronica sat there, stunned, her jewels suddenly dimming under the weight of her own words. She tried to recover, lifting her chin just slightly. Era, you're taking this the wrong way, she said. We only want to help. I tilted my head gently. Help? Or control? Franklin leaned forward, his voice firmer. My wife didn't mean anything disrespectful. You're misinterpreting. I stopped him with a calm shake of my head. No. I heard exactly what she meant. Then I placed my hands on the table and said, let me tell you something I've never told anyone. The entire table went silent. I looked at Marcus, his eyes softening, confused, unsure of what was coming. Then I looked at Veronica again. 40 years ago, I was a secretary. I earned barely enough to survive. I lived in a rented room with a leaking ceiling. I ate whatever I could afford. I raised my son alone because his father vanished. And I worked until my body hurt every single day. Veronica blinked, startled. Franklin leaned back slowly. Simone's lips parted in shock. I didn't stay a secretary, I continued. I studied at night. I took classes. I learned accounting, finance, operations, management. I climbed from secretary to assistant, to coordinator, to manager, to director. I paused, letting every word sink in. It took me 20 years. 20 years of sacrifice no one clapped for. No one praised. No one even noticed. My voice didn't tremble, it grew stronger. And do you know what I earn now? Veronica whispered, what? $40,000 a month. The silence that followed was heavy, a silence that cracked something inside each of them. Marcus's fork slipped from his hand. Simone gasped softly. Franklin frowned, unable to hide disbelief. And Veronica froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I continued, for almost 20 years, I have earned that amount. I oversee operations across 5 countries. Manage budgets bigger than your combined net worth. Sign contracts you couldn't read without a lawyer. Veronica swallowed hard. Her confidence evaporated. Marcus whispered, Mom, why didn't you ever tell me? I looked at him with a soft smile. Because I didn't want you to grow up thinking money made you important. I wanted you to grow with values, not numbers. Then Simone asked quietly, then, why do you live so simply? Why dress like this? Why the old apartment? Why hide all of this? I smiled gently. Because true wealth doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. Real strength is quiet. I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. And do you know why I came here tonight dressed like this? Why I pretended to be poor? Veronica couldn't look away. She was trapped in the honesty she never expected. I did it, to see how you would treat me if you believed I had nothing. Her face flushed with shame, rage, confusion. And Veronica, I whispered, you showed me exactly who you are. She tried to speak, but no words came out. I closed my eyes for a moment and breathed out slowly. I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I am simply disappointed. Their entire world shifted in that moment. And for the first time since dinner began, they finally understood they weren't sitting with a poor woman. They were sitting with a storm. People think humiliation comes from words, but sometimes, the real humiliation comes from silence. The table grew colder, heavier, tighter. Veronica finally regained enough breath to speak. This is ridiculous, she snapped. If you earned that much money, Marcus would know. We would know. Why hide something like that? I lifted my glass calmly. Because it was never your business to know. She stared at me, stunned. I continued, and because wealth means nothing if it becomes your personality. Before she could answer, the waiter arrived with the check, placed it gently in the center of the table. Everyone froze. Franklin reached confidently into his wallet, pulled out a gold card, and handed it over with a polished smile. The waiter left. I watched Veronica straighten her shoulders again, believing the balance of power had returned to her side. But fate has a sense of humor. The waiter returned moments later. "Sir. I'm sorry. Your card was declined." Franklin blinked. "What? That's impossible. Try again." He handed another card. The waiter nodded and left. Veronica shifted uncomfortably. Marcus looked at the table. Simone covered her mouth. The waiter returned again. "Sir, this one has also been declined." Franklin stood up, furious. There must be a mistake. These accounts have very high limits. The entire restaurant was watching now. And I sat there, silent, still, observing. Finally, the waiter asked quietly, "Do you have another method of payment, sir?" The mighty empire that Veronica had spent an hour bragging about, suddenly cracked. Veronica whispered, "Maybe the bank froze the account." "Security issues. That happens when we travel." I nodded gently. "Yes, inconvenient timing." Franklin left to call the bank, humiliated, nervous, angry. And I reached into my faded tote bag, the same bag Veronica had judged the moment I arrived, and pulled out a card they had only seen in magazines. A transparent centurion card. Heavy. Metal. A symbol of a financial world they had never touched. I placed it on the table with quiet confidence. The waiter picked it up carefully, almost reverently. "Thank you, Miss Sterling. I'll be right back." Veronica looked at the card, as if it were a mirror showing her the one thing she never wanted to see, the truth. The check was processed within seconds. No questions. No delays. I paid for the entire dinner, including a generous tip, without blinking. I leaned back in my chair and whispered, "Consider it a gift, from the poor, naive mother you thought I was." Veronica's lips trembled. Simone looked heartbroken. Marcus stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. And Franklin returned just in time to hear the waiter say, "Everything has been settled, sir." He looked from the waiter, to the card, to me. His face fell. "Thank you," he murmured, ashamed. I looked at him calmly. That's what family is for, isn't it? To help each other. Especially when someone needs a small allowance. $700, or in this case, $800, which is what this dinner cost. Veronica flinched as if the truth itself had slapped her. I stood up slowly, gathered my old tote bag, and said the words that ended the night. Money doesn't buy class. It only exposes the lack of it. And then I walked away, leaving them to sit in the ruins of their own arrogance. Freedom doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, it slips in quietly the moment you stop pretending to be small. I stepped out of the restaurant and felt the night air wrap around me like a calm I had been denied for years. Marcus rushed after me, breathless, his eyes shining with guilt and love all at once. Before I could speak, he pulled me into a tight embrace. "Mom. I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I should have asked. I should have known. I should have seen you." I held his face gently and told him the truth. "You only knew the version of me I wanted you to see. And that's okay." Simone walked out moments later, stripped of her elegance, her makeup washed away by tears. She looked at me not as a daughter-in-law defending her parents, but as a woman finally confronting the truth. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For staying silent. For letting them treat you that way. For letting their voices drown out mine." I nodded softly. Silence becomes a habit when you grow up inside someone else's shadow. But today, you stepped out of it. For the next 3 days, the world was quiet. No calls from Veronica. No messages from Franklin. Just silence, a silence filled with their bruised pride and shattered illusions. But on the third day, my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Simone standing there with no makeup, no jewelry, no armor. Just honesty. She sat on my old sofa and spoke in a trembling voice. My parents taught me to measure everything in money, success, safety, happiness, people. I thought that was normal. But after that night, I saw how small that world really is. I don't want to be like them. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to become better. And for the first time, I believed her. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for transformation. I told her, change is slow. It hurts. It demands honesty. But the fact that you want it means you're already halfway there. Later that evening, I made myself tea and sat by my window, watching the city glow with life. My apartment was old, simple, quiet, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I felt something priceless, peace. Not the kind money buys, but the kind truth gives you. I realized something as I sat there. I had spent years hiding my strength to protect others. But that night, I protected myself. And the moment I stopped shrinking, the world around me shifted. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. Mom, did you get home safely? I love you. More now than ever. I felt a tear roll down my cheek. Not from pain. From relief. Because finally, my son wasn't proud of what I had, he was proud of who I was. And that is the wealth no bank account can measure. I looked around my quiet home, took a deep breath, and smiled softly. I didn't need a bigger apartment. I didn't need louder clothes. I didn't need recognition. I needed exactly what I had in that moment, truth. Peace. And a life that no longer required me to hide. For the first time in a long, long time. I felt truly, beautifully free.